How the hell are you doing, YouTube? Today we're back with a brand new video. Today's video I'm just going to go over my mixing process and basically how to mix the plaster properly basically. So in here I already have put some skim, about a bag. I have 3 buckets of water, so 3 black water buckets of water. That's about what I can comfortably put on without having to sort of chase it and struggle, you know. So we add our 3 water and then we'll add our first bag of skim. We will give that a good whisk, and basically when you put the first bag in, when you're using 3 buckets of water, when you put your first bag in, it's not going to tighten up at all. It's basically, when you mix it through, it's still going to be pretty watery. So this bag here that you see me putting in is the second bag. So this amount of water will take usually about between 2.25 and 2.5 bags of skim. And this will do our first coat. When we're actually mixing, we want to keep checked in consistency. As you can see here, this is way too watery because it's just fallen off the trowel. We want to check consistency, and we want to make sure that we have the plaster completely mixed perfectly. So you'll see here when I'm mixing, I'll actually lift the drill. It'll go from the top of the bucket, and then you'll see here in a minute, I'll plunge it down and then I take it back up, and that's sort of what you want to do. You want to keep up and down. You see it goes deeper and then you take it out. You want to always make sure too, when you're mixing your plaster, that the sides of your buckets are well scraped. You can see here, I can tell just by how it's mixing that it's still a bit too watery, so I actually add another drop of skim here. You want to keep the sides of your bucket clean. So usually what I'll do, if I'm mixing like 3 buckets or less, I'll add all my plaster first, and then I'll scrape the sides. But I will do this, as you can see, I'm scraping the scoop now, or the mixing paddle. You need to be sure that your mixing paddle's nice and clean, because if you scrape it, you'll end up scraping. You can see here the consistency's a bit better, but just yeah. So you want to scrape your paddle, but also more importantly, you want to scrape the side of your buckets. You can see this plaster's relatively well mixed, but you see here around the sides, when we scrape the sides of the bucket, it's, you know, big lumps everywhere, and you want to avoid that, because trying to skim this way, it doesn't work. So what you'll do is you'll make sure to give the sides of your bucket a good solid scrape, and I mean, like, you know, over and over and over again, to make sure that it's clean. The very first time you do this, you're probably going to struggle to scrape around the bucket. It doesn't look like it, but it takes pretty strong wrists to scrape the bucket like this. And you'll see here again that I'm scraping the paddle mixer. Again, this needs to be clean, because if you have any stuff at all here, it'll get thinged into the bucket. And then again, I'm scraping the sides to make sure that I don't get any lumps at all. The whisk's actually sitting pretty far down the bucket now, and you want to do that. You want to go from the top to the bottom to make sure it's evenly mixed. 90% of the time it's going to be well mixed on the bottom anyway, just because the wettest of the stuff, you know, it's all the water's in the bottom of the bucket when you add the plaster, so it never really gets a chance to clump up in the bottom. And you just give it basically a good solid mix. You can see here when I'm mixing, the plaster sort of tears. You see here, it's sort of like turn. That's a pretty good indicator that your plaster's perfect. When it tears like that, it's just right in that sweet spot. Now, this would be the thickest that I would mix plaster. I do mix it quite a lot thinner too. But I'm just going to show you here. It's always important to clean your drill. So I've got this cordless mixer, but if you have a corded mixer, it works the same way. This is just a bucket from Screwfix, and what we'll do is we'll turn the drill right down until it's low setting, and that's a half bucket of water. And we'll spin the drill, and what this does is it cleans in and around the paddles, and then we'll use the brush to clean the shaft, and then the top of the paddle, make sure where the water isn't touching, and do that after every mix. If there's any built up plaster on your paddle mixer at all, you're going to be in big trouble, because that'll come off no matter what you do, and it'll end up in your bucket, and it's not going to be a very fun time. You're probably going to see here in a minute, I'll bring another bag of skimming, but this is me mixing for my second coat, and it's the same process, but the ending's slightly different. So when you're mixing, so when you're doing any construction, wear a mask. If we're going to be real about things, like your health's more important than anything. But you can see here, I wear gloves, and you can see also, I have a mask on, and then I have my earphones playing music, but I'll take it technically ear protection. You can see here, it's the same thing, 3 buckets of water, and I'll put a full bag of skim in till the bottom. It's okay to do this, because as long as you put your paddle mixer here in within a couple of seconds, all that plaster is going to mix perfectly until the water. The only time I wouldn't do that would be when you've already plaster in the bucket and you're not sure if you're going to add too much or not, because when you're mixing skim, mixing it too loose is completely fine. Mixing it perfect is fine. If you mix it too tight and try to add water, it's going to set too fast on you. Also, if you overmix, so what I found when I first went out on my own, I used a small paddle mixer, and it took me a long time to mix. And the longer you mix the plaster, the more likely it is to set fast. I know it probably doesn't make any sense, but I'm just telling you that from experience. This plaster is a quick setting plaster. The setting time on this is 2 hours. We usually finish it within an hour and a half ish. The second that it starts to go colour, we give it its flexing, and then just leave it be. But you know, so you can see here we've added some more. We add the full bag in, we give it a whisk, and then we'll only add half the second bag, and that's just to make sure that we don't add too much, because obviously you mix too much, you try to water it down, it's gonna set for you. It's just a nightmare. So we add the last of the bag here. As I was saying, tell you the difference between this and the last one. That my first coat I'll mix a bit thicker, and you're going to see here this is significantly looser. You don't have to do this. The reason I do this is because it gives me more time to work with the plaster. And this in this property, suction the walls were pretty bad for suction. I PV'd them twice, and they were still pretty bad. So I just mixed it a bit later, a bit looser. But if you're going to mix it loose, just remember that it's going to be really difficult to keep on your trowel, keep on your hawk, or as for whatever reason some of the English people here call handboard. you can see like this is a lot wetter, and as I say, it just gives me more time. So, but if you're going to be mixing, say if you're doing like a wall, and you know you're not going to struggle, mix the both of them the same consistency. But that's just a little tip that for that I use. You mix it a little bit looser, you get a little bit more working time. Don't ever mix your first coat loose. Mix it till you know the specification on the bag, because you don't really want that to be loose. You want, if the suction's bad, you want to close that coat in as you go. Where this one, I'm going to try to get all this on before I close it in. As you can see, it's a lot wetter. But hopefully this video helps. I'm not sure whether that was just all rambling or if it made sense to anyone, or if it helped you. A good way to tell, take a scoop. If it slides off too fast, it's too watery. If it doesn't slide off at all, it's too thick. And somewhere in between them two, where you scoop it out and you put your trowel till the side and it slides off slowly, that's usually the sweet spot. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Check out the social media, Facebook, Instagram. We're also on TikTok. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.